Good evening, everybody. While I live fix my camera here real quick because I was not able to see all of our cool graphics while we were getting started there. That looks a lot better. All right, and welcome to Fallout Windy Wasteland here on the Bear Pen. So this is going to be a presently we're thinking a single shot series that'll be about 8 to 9 episodes long that will run for with the cast, and then depending upon how everybody kind of receives the campaign, if all of y'all like it and start hyping it up and promoting it and coming back and giving us views and helping us out, we will certainly obviously go ahead and look into continuing on with this adventure. So I have some plans for where the grander story can end up going. But with that said, let's go ahead and real quick introduce you to all of the players that we are going to go ahead and have in the campaign here, at least for kicking off, although we do have some plans for possibly some guest spots and maybe some additional cast later on, so we'll see how all that goes. But for tonight, let's go ahead and we will start off with Danny. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience and then tell them a little bit about yourself, where they can find you online, and then a little bit about the character that you're going to be playing here this evening.
Hi, I'm Danny Moth. I'm at MX Moth on just about everything. That's pretty much it on the socials. I'm playing Aiden Ellis. She's a Vault security, and you're not going to find anyone much bigger than her in the Vault. She's about 6'5", 6'4", built like a brick wall. You're going to see her coming from a long way.
All right, that is fantastic. And I think that next we'll go ahead and jump over to Ari here. Again, why don't you go ahead and tell everybody who you are, a little bit about yourself, where they can find you online, and a little bit about the character you're going to play this evening.
Hi, I'm Ari. If you guys been watching Bear Pen stuff, I play Elijah on Blood on the Bayou. If you follow our friend Kira over on the Cookout TTRPG, I play in a couple of their campaigns. For socials, you can find me on Twitter, Small Shadow Snack. It's a possum shrine at this point. It's just possums and ramblings. But here I play Katya Ivanova, who is also a vault dweller and a member of security. She is 5'7", 5'8"-ish, and is very protective.
Awesome. Yeah, it will be great to have our vault dwellers get into a little bit of mischief out in the wonderful wastelands outside of the Midwestern Commonwealth. And speaking of the wasteland and wastelanders, let's go ahead and jump over to one of our next players here. Mac, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to everybody, tell them a little about yourself, where they can find you online if you're so inclined, and also a little bit about the character you're playing here this evening.
Hey everybody, name's Mac. I don't really have any, not really social online, so this possibly be my very first big thing. In this game I'm playing Doc, or his real name is Deacon Shane. He is a former raider, but he is he's trying to go away from his old ways, and he's now a mercenary for hire. He feels bad for what he's done in the past, and now he's more of a medic type, sniper type of person, and he's pretty friendly with everybody, and just don't get in his way. So
that is a fantastic type of character to have in the Wasteland, and very, very fitting. Good set of skills pairing of skills to have there to keep yourself hopefully alive in what all the wastes have to offer. And then last but not least, one of the partners and owners here at the Bear Pen. Adrian, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little about yourself and where to find you online and a little bit about the character that you're going to be playing here for this campaign.
Sweet, I'm Adrian Bear, and you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at the Adrian Bear, and I am a storyteller here at the Bear Pen for Blood in the Bayou and Thala Unbound, which starts on Friday. You can also find me on twitch.tv/Kira858 playing JC Diaz and Lords of Faerun. And this evening, I am playing Jack Wilson, who is the sheriff of a place that I'm sure our characters will be introduced to quite soon. Basically, think Owen Wilson in Shanghai noon, but competent. That's pretty much who Jack is, and I'm really looking forward to these few episodes I'm going to be in.
I'm very much looking forward to it as well. I think we're going to have a pretty good time with all of this. So, with that in mind, I am Alex Hillman. I will be your overseer for the campaign here of Fallout. And you probably see me here at the Bear Pen. I'm on Blood on the Bayou with a couple of the folks that we have on stream here tonight. As well as my work with Hunters Entertainment, where, you know, I'm a brand manager and all of that good stuff. So you probably see my works with Outbreak Undead and Altered Carbon, the role-playing game, and all of that good stuff. And yeah, I'll be, you know, playing pretty much everybody else tonight other than the core character cast that we have here for you this evening. Now, with all of that in mind, I think it would only be appropriate for us to start off a Fallout game one way, and that is with a little bit of background. War. War never changes. The United States ended World War II by dropping atomic bombs, and the world awaited Armageddon. Instead, something miraculous happened. Humanity began to use atomic energy not as a weapon, but as a nearly limitless source of power. People enjoyed luxuries once thought the realm of science fiction, with domestic robots, fusion-powered cars, and portable computers becoming a staple of everyday life. But it wouldn't be long before this American dream would turn into a waking nightmare, because war never changes. Years of unyielding consumption led to peace becoming a distant memory. War was waged over the resources that could be acquired, only this time the spoils of war were also its weapons: petroleum and uranium. Then, on Saturday, October 23rd, 2077, the resource wars culminated with the Great War. In 2 brief hours, weapons were launched by all the nuclear-capable nations of the world, and most of the planet was reduced to cinders. A great cleansing, an atomic spark struck by human hands, quickly raged out of control as spears of nuclear fire rained from the skies. But it was not, as some had predicted, the end of the world. Instead, the apocalypse was simply the prologue to another bloody chapter of human history. A few were able to reach the relative safety of the large underground vaults. Residents of Vault 53 were to wait for an all-clear from Vault-Tec, but it never came. For over 170 years, the vault has subsisted, but the failure of a thermal regulator chip in their reactor has forced the Overseer's hand. The time has come for the vault to open. And that brings us to the present day. We find ourselves within the confines of Vault 53. This vault was located outside of the pre-war city of Platteville, Wisconsin, located below the Platte Mound, a landmark in the area, a very large, robust hill in which the construction of Vault 53 would be commenced, keeping it buried under the earth provided extra protection in the event of nuclear apocalypse, which, as we discussed, back in the year of 2077 did befall the globe. The residents of Vault 53 originally set in with 500 residents that made it inside the confines of the vault. They were under the assumption that within perhaps 50 or so years, an all-clear signal would be received from Vault-Tec Corporation, alerting the residents that they would be able to once again embark back out into the world and begin reforging a new America. This all-clear never came. The citizens of Vault 53 made a difficult decision at that time, and they decided that it would be in their best interest, having not received the all-clear, to remain within the confines of the vault. Vault-Tec had designed these systems in order to last for potentially hundreds of years, should the need arise. It was never expected that the vaults would be sealed for that long. But the residents hunkered in. They did this despite the fact that Vault 53 seemed prone to equipment failure. Nothing that would cause the vault to fail outright. Just frequent and important enough things to cause regular frustration amongst the citizens. And this is because, unknown to the citizens of Vault 53, the vault was designed with an experiment in mind. You see, Vault-Tec was not entirely altruistic in their designs. Vault 53 was designed in order to test whether or not humans would be able to endure in an environment with substandard equipment that would be needing repair on a regular basis in order to maintain their safety and security. Vault 53, had things gone as planned, likely would have actually proven successful. Again, the citizens made the decision to go ahead and remain within the confines of the vault. And this is the way it has been now for over 170 years. There are now citizens of Vault 53 who only know the world of the vault. They weren't here in the pre-war, although due to their life in the vault, they have had access to some pre-war education. They've been kept up to speed, perhaps much better than those who didn't make it into the vaults, as to what the world was like before the Great War. And this has worked fantastically for, again, over 170 years. But the day has finally come where the current overseer, a position which is assigned based on vault democratic elections, has been forced to play their hand. The thermal control chip for the nuclear reactor that powers the vault has begun to fail. It's only a matter of time before it gives out completely and the nuclear reactor spirals out of control. In order to continue their way of life and ensure the safety of the citizens, the time has come that some vault residents will have to step foot into the world beyond the vault doors and see what is truly left of pre-war America, if anything. And so we find ourselves now in Overseer Montez's office. Overseer Montez is a middle-aged woman, roughly in her late 30s. She's got shoulder-length black hair and a very kind and soft face. And on this evening, she has requested 2 members of the Vault security staff to her office, Aiden and Katya. Upon arriving and entering through the mechanical pressurized doors of the vault that seal off all of the various rooms and compartments and just another part of your day-to-day life, you find the Overseer sitting behind a large semicircle desk. They have a computer monitor gleaming in front of them, the light shining up and illuminating their face with a pale green light. Thank you so much for coming to see me this evening. Please have a seat. And she motions to 2 chairs which are sitting across the desk from her.
It's like being called into the principal's office, so, you take a seat.
Very, very gingerly sitting down.
As you're both aware from the security briefing the other day, we're in a bit of a situation. The thermal control chip for the reactor is on the fritz, and from what I've been told by engineering, that we simply do not have the means to repair it in-house. After considering all of our options, I've made the decision that it would be best for us to send a small team out from the vault. We know where there are a few other vaults located within the region, and that may be a place to start. There are also, before the war, nuclear power was all the rage. So there are numerous facilities that also house nuclear reactors for their power sources. It's possible that one of these places remains intact and that you might be able to scavenge it from the ruins of one of these pre-war locations. Or perhaps we'll find that something happened with the all-clear signal and things are already getting back to a state of normal out there. That would certainly be what I would hope at this point. It's been, oh gosh, we're moving into the later half on pressing to 200 years at this point. It's hard to believe. Anyway, as you can imagine by me calling you here, I've decided that you 2 should make up the team that we will go ahead and send out. Now, before you go, we can obviously provide you with some general materials to take with you. Certainly your Vault-Tec security equipment would absolutely make sense for you to take. We don't know exactly what state the world is out there. And we can certainly supply a few medical supplies and perhaps some funds in case the world is intact out there and there is some sense of an economy that you might be able to tap into. Additionally, with your Pip-Boys that all residents have, what we'll be able to do is connect you up to the Vault-Tec systems before you depart, and we can download the latest satellite data that is stored in the Vault-Tec databanks. That should give you at least a read of the general region and where at least pre-war cities would have existed. That would be certainly, I would think, a place to start potentially. And our vault, as you very well know, is not very far from what was a burgeoning pre-war city. There may be people there that we could potentially rely upon in our hour of need.
Yeah, we could go. She just kind of like looks at Aiden to see like.
I mean, if those are the orders, those are the orders.
As I said, it pains me to send any of our citizens out there with such uncertainty, but I feel both of you have proven yourselves exemplary on the security team in your time with us, and I could think of no better names to levy this task to.
I guess. When are we leaving?
And she takes a look at the Pip-Boy strapped to her left wrist. Well, right now it's about 3 p.m. I think what might be best in this particular instance would be to have you actually go out in the evening. For one, if things are not wonderful out there, it will provide you with a little bit of cover. Additionally, upon leaving the vault, you'll be able to scan the horizon, let's say, and see if potentially any of the cities in the nearby area show signs of life. If there's any power out there or anything like that, we may be able to see bright lights of a city. It would be a quick way to get us a read on what the situation might be in regards to civilization out there by seeing if we can see the gleaming lights. That'll give you a few hours to get your belongings together and any supplies that you need. And, of course, as I mentioned, we should certainly get you your satellite imagery. And she pulls a cord out that she connects up to the computer station that she is sitting at, and then hands the plug end off to both of you in general for whoever to take it first. And it would just plug right into your Pip-Boy.
Yeah, it'll take it and plug it in.
And once you plug it in, after a couple moments, it finishes downloading the data, and you see a map produced on your Pip-Boy screen. And on that map, you can clearly see located in the upper left-hand corner the Vault 53, denoted on the map itself. And across the region, you see a few other spots where there are 4 other vaults listed as locations stored on the Pip-Boy data. Additionally, you can make out where some pre-war highways would have been, interconnecting various towns within the region, and where a few pre-war towns themselves would have existed and may still exist to this day. Additionally, as she scoots back from the desk and stands from her chair and walks to the back of the room where in the back of the overseer's office there are a number of large computer server banks that help manage all of the various vault systems, and then off to the right of the desk as you're facing it, there is a series of lockers. And she heads over to one of the lockers and opens it up and reaches inside and comes back over with a couple of stacks of what appears to be pre-war currency. Some dollar bills that you don't really use in the vault. The way the vaults are set up is honestly even almost a little bit communistic, where everybody just kind of does their jobs and makes sure everybody else is taken care of, more so than a standard democracy or capitalistic system. That's just solely due to the reality of the vault. So some people work the diners, some people work in engineering. You have a few robots within the vault that help out with various tasks as well. So money isn't really a factor normally, but you're aware of it, and in your schooling in the Vault program, you did cover pre-war economy and things like that, so you're aware of what the dollar bills are. So you can add that to your character sheets there. Each of you would have 2 stacks of pre-war money. And this is, as I said, is just in case, for all we know, the all clear signal just didn't get to our vault for some reason, and maybe the world out there is all right. And if so, this should allow you to potentially trade and barter as you need to for additional supplies while looking for a new chip for the vault. Of course, if the world is fine out there, you should absolutely come back and just let us know. But if that's not the case, hopefully it'll help.
Yeah, we can do that.
Fantastic. I knew that I could count on both of you. And that the vault could count on you. On behalf of all of our residents, I thank you. Now, if there's anything you need to attend to, please feel free to take care of it now, and once you're ready, try to be at the vault door this evening at 9 p.m. and I will see to opening and helping you out into the world.
Yes, we can do that.
Sounds like orders, honestly, so it doesn't really matter how it sounds.
You were always a very astute one, Aiden. And so, is there anything that the two of you would like to take care of before getting ready to head out into the wide open world?
Aiden lives pretty simply. I don't think she has a whole lot to gather. So just herself, her equipment, and her decision-making process.
Sounds good.
You'll just like get her supplies together, and then mama hen her son a bit.
All right.
Because first time she's going without him, going anywhere without him.
Aww.
Is there anything specific that you're going to do with the son, or just overbearing extra mother love?
Completely overbearing, extra mama love, hugs, to the point where he's probably like, Mom, why?
he's flipping out because he has homework that he needs to be doing. You're just not letting him get what he needs to get done. He's not going to pass the goat if you keep up with this.
Your mother's leaving. You'll be fine. Homework can wait.
All right. And as you gather up all of your belongings and equipment before heading out into the wide world, you make your way down through the corridors of the vault and the hermetically sealed environment that you have lived in your whole life, and you get to the large vault door entrance. And there is a very large gear-shaped door that seals Vault 53 shut. And once you arrive, the Overseer is actually already there in advance. And she smiles as you both enter the room. Fantastic. And I see you're all geared up and ready to go. Such efficiency. Well, I suppose this is it. And she walks over to a little control station at the top of a small metal platform and connects her Pip-Boy up to the control device and begins interacting with the buttons on the console, and eventually pulls down a little lever, at which point alarms kick off in the area and lights begin flashing as a big mnemonic arm comes down and connects up to the center of the vault door, and the grinding of metal rings through your ears as it pulls the vault door back out of its seal and then rolls it off to the side, leaving a large gear-shaped hole leading out into darkness, generally speaking, because the vault itself, as I mentioned, was made beneath the plat mound. So essentially, there is a tunnel bored into the earth there that eventually leads out to an outer door that you can use to exit from the main vault tunnel. And this is your first time ever seeing anything beyond the walls of your own vault.
After me, then.
I mean, I'll go first, but yeah, okay, let's just go.
And you two make your way down this long, desolate, earthen tunnel. It's very still, very quiet as you first step out. That quiet is quickly broken by the sound of alarms and the flashing of a light outside here, illuminating somewhat the tunnel now for you, and the sound of grinding metal as the mnemonic arm begins pulling the vault door back into place and sealing the vault once again shut. As this is going on, you get a quick survey of the area, and you do see another control panel outside of the vault here, off to the side of the door, where you could potentially connect your Pip-Boy up. That would be how you'll end up actually communicating with the Overseer to let them know you've returned to the vault once that time finally comes. And the flashing light also illuminates a little bit of this earthen tunnel, letting you see that it kind of heads down for a good few hundred, probably about 100 yards or so, maybe about the size of an American football field, roughly in length, before there is another steel door down at the end that looks like it may potentially either go into another long tunnel or hopefully into the outside world. And you make your way down, taking use of the light before the vault door itself actually seals up behind you, and eventually reach this door and swing it open. And as you do, you are greeted by the blanket of night. And it is a surreal experience for both of you instantaneously. I'll leave it up to you as players to decide if this will be a factor for your characters, but one thing that affects most vault dwellers the most frequently amongst them once they enter into the real world again is the concept of the sky. They've never been in an environment that didn't have ceilings. Some vault dwellers experience senses of vertigo as a result of this, just not being able to wrap their heads around this vast, seemingly, there's no ceiling in sight. There seems to be lights up there off in the distance. You've heard of this. They talked about starlight and what the sky was like when you were in class, but it's an experience that you've never had before. You feel the wind rush against your face for the first time in your life, not propelled by some kind of fan down in the vault. You hear sounds, mostly silence, but it's not a true silence. There's this just general, almost kind of ambience to the world around you. And not the same ambience that you experienced in the vault. You're used to hearing the general hums and whistles and whooshes of various machinery constantly working to keep you alive. The hum of the halogen lights that exist down there to try to still give you some sense of experiencing quote-unquote daylight. But this is different. And it overwhelms you at first. But after a few moments, you realize that where you are is up on the top of a seemingly a large hill. You can kind of tell that in the distance there are spots where things seem to be kind of generally sloping down. You didn't really realize it when you were exiting the vault so much, but as you were going along, you started kind of moving up a gradient in the tunnel. And around you are what you're fairly certain are trees. Again, you've never seen one before, and they don't exactly look like what you were told about when you were going through school. You were told about these things with these vibrant green leaves, or at certain times of year they might be different colors and things like that, but these are just kind of withered husks with, there are branches, but there's no greenery there. And it's all very strange. And you instinctively reach for your Pip-Boy and kick on the backlight for the screen, which provides some illumination for you and acts as functionally as a flashlight, essentially. And the two of you begin making your way through the environment. And you finally eventually reach the clearing from the woods that you find yourself in. Still atop the hill, but this is where you get that first sense of the fact that this was kind of like a pre-war landmark or monument of sorts. There's a viewing platform here at the top of the hill, and you can see that there are these binocular mounts that are on the viewing platform that you can use to potentially look out over the landscape. And you see a few utility buildings up here and a decent looking staircase, or at least it would have been probably before the war, but now is kind of broken down and in a state of disrepair. Clearly, nobody has been working to maintain this particular landmark. However, in the distance, you do notice life. Specifically, you can see the lights emanating. Not strong, not as though it is a bustling pre-war city or a metropolis, but just a dim lighting. A little ways off in the distance. It seems that there might be a settlement somewhere off to the south here, if you go by your Pip-Boy's compass. But beyond that, you realize that it's mostly just darkness. And you stand here now, looking out over a landscape that is effectively a wasteland. This isn't the pre-war America that you were told about in books, that you've seen in pictures. This is the result of the hubris of mankind. And you feel a sinking feeling in your stomachs at this realization. You all kind of thought that it was possibly going to go this way, that maybe the world wouldn't have gotten back into order. But you had always hoped. And yet here, nearly 200 years later, and ruins, a desolate emptiness. What do you do?
Well, one thing I can say that at least there's no more doorways to smack my forehead into.
That should come as a sense of general relief. There don't seem to be any ceilings, at least not
You
here.
gotta find the silver lining. So are we going towards the light or not towards the light?
Feel the light would be the smart thing, because at least that denotes someone's there. If they don't have the part, they can at least let us know who does.
Flip for it.
Fine. Fine. We'll flip for it.
Heads light, tails no light. Heads. Let's go to the light.
It'll be fine. It'll be fine. Yeah, we'll
Doesn't
think
matter.
positively.
It's towards the light. It's the one thing they always tell you not to do.
I mean, yes, but we'll just think positively. Like, light means there's people. People means that there's possibly a part. This could be all over before we know it, and we can be back home. Because I don't like this.
Okay, fair. I'll give you that one.
It's too wide and open out here. Let's go. Let's go. She's like trying to walk fast, realizing she's getting a little too far ahead, and just stops. Because she's like, I don't really want to go alone into the dark.
Aiden isn't likely to stray too far from Katya anyhow. So it's they're very close.
All right.
It's just like, no, we're gonna think positively. There'll be a part down there. We can go home. It'll all be over. I won't have to look at these weird things that they say are trees, because these don't look like trees.
I'd like for each of you to go ahead and give me a survival check. But this is going to be actually a weird survival check. So don't just use the survival skill on your sheet. We're going to use perception and survival, actually.
So how do we do that? Roll survival and...
You'll click the little die up at the top of the sheet rather than the survival skill, and you'll pick your attribute and your skill.
Normal 2 dice.
Yep, normal 2 dice.
I do not see the little dice.
I can get it for you then. Perception.
That's 2 successes for me.
All right, no successes for Katya. All right, so this was actually just a difficulty 0 check, actually. So basically, we're going to find the information one way or the other. But this allows you guys to get your first few action points stocked up into the action point pool. So I don't know which one of you wants to track. Oh, I'll track it. I can be nice. Let's be nice. We'll call this action points. And I will let all of y'all see this. Current pool 2. Alright, so action points is up at the top there. You will be able to check that out in the Roll20 journal to double check when you have points in the pool. As a reminder, action points in this game are a shared resource. You can only have 6 at most in the pool. And you get them from banking extra successes that you get on checks beyond what you actually need to pass the check. And they can be used for a number of things. So in the little rule summary that I have there, there's an AP and luck one that you can look at to see what all things you can do with action points. One of the key things is that they will let you use additional dice when you're making skill checks so that you can potentially get more successes. But with that in mind, Aiden, since you actually did get successes on the check, whereas Katya did not, even though you would have both noticed this eventually regardless, you find it almost immediately, Aiden. So as you both go to start leaving the location here and start making your way south to where you're seeing these lights, you happen to kind of look over to your right as you're both walking down alongside the staircase and kind of the overgrowth alongside it, because just judging from the stairs, you're pretty sure that they're not safe to try to walk down. You're also fairly confident that that viewing platform may not have been a good idea either, so you're fairly thankful that you didn't end up walking out onto it. But to your right, you notice there's clearly been something done. Like, you're seeing a lot of spots where the grass isn't grown up as much as you would expect along from where you're walking. You're not quite sure what it is, but it looks like someone has set up stones along the face of this hill, and you can't make out in the darkness what exactly it is, but it's clearly trying to depict something. Beyond that,
So the question is whether we look closer or not.
what's that?
So the question is whether we look closer or not.
Potentially. You can certainly try to do some investigation here at night, or you could, obviously decide to camp and start doing things in the day now that you do know the direction of potential civilization. You could ignore it. It's really up to you guys. Katya, you do pick up on this eventually as well. Namely, you notice Aiden kind of keeps looking off to the right like, what the heck? And so you start looking and notice the same thing. These stones, just loads of stones, making something very large across the face of this hill. And then additionally, you kind of gauge out based on where you are that the civilization, whatever it happens to be, where this light is coming from, is probably a couple mile walk that you're going to end up having to make here.
Well, the coin said yes again, so I'm gonna go look at it. Hopefully there's enough light from the Pit Boys that we can kind of shine it in that general direction, maybe get a little reflection off the stone going.
So you very quickly start realizing as you're kind of checking it out with the Pip-Boy there, because the Pip-Boy does give decent illumination in your immediate vicinity, but it doesn't stretch like a super long ways. Like it's not quite as good as a legitimate flashlight, because it is still, in theory, you're just kind of kicking up the brightness on a computer screen and using that to see what's going on around you. And it gives a kind of green, washed out glow to everything, because the screen itself is actually green in color. So that's what the backlighting is looking like. And it's very difficult to try to make sense of. So you can tell that the rocks themselves run generally down the length of the staircase for the most part. They don't quite go all the way to the bottom of the hill. You walk a good ways down. The hill itself is relatively steep. Like I said, it's a very, very, very massive hill out in the countryside here. And then it starts kind of running down the base of the hill, and it eventually cuts off, and it seems to cut back up. But as you walk further along the base, you notice that it does end up back down at the base again. So there's some kind of pattern being made with just a copious amount of stones.
I feel like I know that I'm not smart enough to figure this out. So I'll point it out to Katya, and maybe she is. Katya, are you smart enough to figure out this?
I mean, it looks like they put something on the mountain, but I don't know. It's not enough light to see really what it is. It just looks like random rocks.
Lots and lots and lots of rocks.
So many rocks.
Do they look like they're pointing in a direction, or are they just a completely random array?
A random array in different shapes. They don't really seem to be pointing anywhere. They just seem to be being stacked. And when I say stacked up, like they're not like tall stacked up. It's probably only about a rock or two in depth and thickness, but they're very tightly packed in together and are clearly trying to be used to make some. You start piecing together that it's something that's really supposed to be either viewed, one, in the day, or two, from a distance, because it's something that's, whatever this is taking up most of the hill face.
Maybe we could see it a little farther down?
Maybe if we go a little further in the morning, we could see it better.
I wonder if maybe we could see it from the town in the morning.
I guess there's only one way to find out.
I mean, if not, it doesn't look like it's going anywhere. We just come back.
In my experience, rocks don't usually go anywhere by themselves.
I mean, we don't know what really happened out here. I mean, maybe rocks grew legs secretly in the middle of the night. I don't know.
A valid point. hadn't considered that. I'm worried about something else.
You don't think the trees move, do you?
Well, if the rocks move, the trees probably move.
Oh, let's get out of here. I missed the vault already. It's not even been 2 hours. I already missed the vault.
So you guys heading straight for the settlement, or are you going to be trying to camp for the night and approaching the settlement in the day? What's the plan?
Let's go ahead and walk while we have the energy to walk, I think.
All right, sounds good. So you start making your way across the landscape. There are some old pre-war roads around that are just in complete disarray. Most of them out here, the road itself in front of this large hill is at this point appears to be nothing more than a dirt road. As you continue on, you do get to spots where there does seem to be pavement again, but it's all cracked and craggly and certainly wouldn't make for the smoothest driving experience if you were to try to drive on it. That poses the question. As you try to make your way to this settlement, are you going to follow the roads, which are a less direct route, but more defined in regards to their pathways? Or are you going to set out across the countryside, which will give you a more beeline direct route to the settlement, but will abandon the obvious landmark of pre-war roads that were linking various places together?
How much cover does the countryside give us, if any?
A little bit here and there. So there aren't any like massive forests really around this region. As you're walking, it looks like that a lot of the places that were here pre-war, you occasionally see like a house and a barn dotted along the way. You're definitely in what would have been rural farmland in the pre-war times.
It's up to you.
There's advantages and disadvantages to both.
I'm all for the most direct route, but I mean, you don't know what's on roads. You don't know what's in grass. You don't know what's in buildings.
Yeah,
What's anywhere.
I can see why they never gave us the all clear signal.
We're not getting any like radiation readings or anything like that. Like we're not pinging.
Yeah, the Geiger counter on your Pip Boys are reading as just, I mean, there's technically always radiation around, so you're not seeing anything above the normal ambient radiation levels.
Maybe road while we have the cover of darkness, and then if we need to slip off the road during the day or to camp, at least try to keep the road in our sights.
Good plan. It's a good plan. I like how you think on this.
Well, you're pretty sure
just shooting blindly.
Yeah, you're pretty sure if you go through the evening that you will certainly get to the town before daylight. While it is a bit of a walk, it's just a few miles, so it's just going to be a couple hours, and you left the vault around 9 p.m. So you begin making your way down the roads. And as I said, it's not necessarily the most smooth walk in the world. The roads themselves have deteriorated to a point of barely being recognizable, other than the fact that it does stamp out a lot of the growth of the very scraggly, dead-looking grass that seems to be permeating across this area. So it does still leave a more defined path cutting through this just desolate wasteland that surrounds you. And you walk for a number of miles down the road. You do end up passing by maybe a total of 3 or 4 farmhouses along the way as you start making your way eventually up to what appears to be a pre-war highway. So these previous roads were clearly just like old country back roads or city type roads, whereas you finally reach a stretch where it's a much more large, massive highway itself. And once you get there, you kind of are just a little bit to the east at this point of where you had seen the light coming from, and now is starting to become much more noticeable on your general horizon as you get closer and closer to the location. And you realize that what you're coming up upon seems to be this ramshackle little settlement. Doesn't look like it is pre-war in and of itself. However, it does make use of some of the pre-war ruins that appear to be on the outskirts of, judging by your Pip-Boy map, what appears to be the ruins of a town called Platteville, Wisconsin. However, they're clearly not making use of the whole pre-war city, nor do the ruins of the pre-war city look like they have been really properly repaired at all. The vast majority of it looks very run down, and even the buildings that are in use as you start coming up to this town, a lot of them seem to be ramshackle constructions that were made after the fact, with only a couple of spots dotted here and there where they have found a pre-war building that was in a good enough state of structural integrity to still continue to be used as a building, and has been now repurposed into the actual settlement itself. So there are a couple of pre-war buildings that are being used. It appears to be one of them was likely a hotel from the looks of it, and another one appears to be a small little strip mall type of deal.
I was imagining one of those like Wild West sound stages, even though this is not the right area for it at all. But that's still what I had in my head, so that's what I'm going with.
Very fair. Now, I imagine I need to real quick jump to our other players here as you all approach this small settlement. Doc and Jack. The two of you have a very different experience to life in comparison to the players that we just spent a little time with. One could say it's the polar opposite experience to what they have had. You have never known life in the vaults. You have never known life that is still saturated with a sense of pre-war Americana. You have only ever known the Wasteland. Now, both of you are aware that in the years preceding the Great War, while America hasn't rebounded and come back to being a glorious world power of interconnected commonwealths that it used to be, humanity didn't die out during the Great War. Pockets of humanity were still able to cling on, still able to keep pushing forward. And in the preceding 173 years since the Great War itself, humanity has started working on trying to spring back. Initially, this, even before your time, from what you understand, started with typically tribes of people coming together, groups of survivors who made it through the initial Holocaust of the fallout as it spread across the globe. And eventually these tribes slowly but surely started growing into more traditional settlements and towns. And at this point, both of you are aware that you might even call them factions now at this point have started to arise. Not necessarily quite to the point of a nation or a true governmental system, but senses of multiple settlements coming together and being tied under a single banner. These flags are beginning to fly around the wasteland. Now, Mound View, where you all reside, originally this settlement actually did exist more within the actual pre-war ruins of Platteville. Over time, as things kind of kept falling apart and things kept going into further states of disrepair and various buildings became more and more dangerous, various parts of it were given up. And then eventually, just a few months ago, a group of raiders moved into town. I say raiders, they're more a gang than a band of raiders. You see, outside of one incident recently, they haven't really tried to take anything from the town per se. Although, again, very, very recently, just within the past few days, they did steal the safe that used to reside within the sheriff's office that Jack previously would oversee, and that safe contained all of the city's funds collected through a system of taxation that all of the citizens here have agreed to in order to help Jack or whoever happens to be sheriff at any given time, as he was not the first sheriff of Mound View, nor will he likely be the last. It gives them the funds necessary to try to provide that sense of security and stability to the citizens of the town. Over time, the settlement has fluctuated in size, and at this point it is at its last legs, really. Since Nukatami, who is the head of the gang that moved into town here, brought his crew in, they've started to scare off the traders. And they've also slowly but surely, just through being a general pest and menace, have pushed the citizens further and further back out of the ruins of Old Platteville, and Mound View is now just a small collective of wastelanders who live on the outskirts, really, of the old pre-war ruins. Nukatami and his crew have set up inside the ruins proper. In fact, they've namely settled in on what was a old university campus within the town. The city used to house a well-received engineering school. And they have retro-purposed one of the buildings there and begun turning it into a hotel and casino. It was the old in the pre-war times, it was the campus's student center. Now, as for you, Doc, you only arrived in town just today. You're not necessarily from Mound View itself. But due to the recent trouble, Jack recently put out word that he was looking for few good wastelanders to come in and, for a reasonable amount of pay, 50 caps, assist him essentially as his temporary deputies to deal with this problem that the city's been having and get things back under control. You have had this note that you found in one of the nearby settlements and started making your way this way, needing a little bit of work. Now, at this point, I imagine you're probably staying in the hostel. Since you were light on funds upon getting into town, you were probably, I imagine, hoping not to burn those immediately on hotel costs, but thankfully Mountain View does feature a hostel in the remnants of the pre-war hotel that was here on the outskirts of town. It's always acted as the town's hostel. They previously used a different location for the actual inn itself, but now that they've been pushed back, the hostel also gets double function as the inn. The nicer rooms they charge for, whereas the more run down and kind of dingier rooms, which you've now settled into, those go for free for any passers-by or traders that might be rolling through the area. Now, as I said, you did just get into town today and start getting yourself settled. You haven't really had an opportunity yet to reach out to the sheriff here in town just yet. This evening, are you kicking it in your room at the hostel, or are you spending time at the local tavern, or what are your plans this evening, Doc?
Well, I guess Doc wanted, I guess I would, in my opinion, would actually try to find out more information on what's going on Mount View at the moment. Doc's pretty meticulous when it comes to jobs, so he wants to know almost all the information that they can give him, so that way he doesn't botch the job. He knows how it can get bad really quick. Definitely in the Wasteland.
All right. So the best bet for that would either probably be one of two options. Either kind of sitting around in the common area of the hostel/hotel, or heading down to the tavern and doing your best to essentially get into conversations with some of the locals and just start getting a read for the actual town itself. For that, I'm going to have you go ahead and give me a speech check. And this is going to be a standard speech check, so you don't need to do any of the special fiddly stuff. You can just do a straight speech check. You do have a few action points in the pool right now, so if you did want to grab any of those, if the other players are cool with it, you could grab those and get some extra dice on the roll. You're looking for a difficulty 1 on this check, which simply means that you need to get at least 1 success for you to get any kind of pertinent information here. And while you're working on that, Adrian, what is Jack doing this evening as the sheriff? Does he sit guard at one of the entrances to town, or does he kick it mostly at the sheriff's office, or is at this hour of night is he doing patrols or going to the local tavern, or how's he spend his evenings?
Wow. Yeah, I think this time of night I'm kind of like at the local tavern. I'm just chilling with Mutt and just speaking to people and kind of seeing if everyone's okay.
Sounds good. And Doc, would you get on your check there?
Roll that for you. Number of dice would still be 2, right?
Yes. Yeah, unless you're spending some action points.
I decided not to.
Okay. 2 successes, and we were only looking for 1, so that's going to bank another action point for y'all. I'll actually get that added to our little ticker here. And now we're up to 3. I think for audience sake, I'm going to try to incorporate the group's action points on screen for y'all in the future. But sadly, I wasn't able to get that in place for tonight's show, so you'll just have to. I'll keep everybody appraised of where the action points are at. So we are up to 3 again, and first of all, Jack, you would certainly notice while spending time at the bar, you're obviously chit-chatting with a few of the locals and just doing your due diligence, making sure everybody is mostly feeling comfortable, that they aren't running into any other problems outside of this whole mess with Nukatami, which obviously you're also working on trying to alleviate at this point, but haven't gotten around to it just yet. So you're, I'm sure, also reassuring a few folks that, you know, absolutely I understand that's a problem, and we're gonna do what we can about that. But you do notice a new face in the bar tonight. Doc, would you go ahead and actually describe your character?
All right, so my character, Doc, he's wearing some sort of like kind of like clothing that he scrounged up from a bunch of raiders. So it's your typical like. Sorry, I'm being attacked here at the moment. Yep. So he's gonna. I want to say like a coveralls, maybe like a repurposed coverall, some shoes, and he's wearing a kind of like a cowboy hat, I assume, and he has his hunting rifle square in his back. And he also has a leather chest armor on his chest. He's about maybe middle-aged, 30, 35 years old. And if you look at his face, there's multiple, like maybe old scars from like previous fights that he had. Some are healing, some are just like old faded scars before. So you can see that Doc is he's battle hardened, pretty much seen a lot of action. That despite the whole mess on the face, he looks like he's always smiling. He's always like giving like an optimistic smile to everybody. So,
and for that reason, just that description alone, that's why Doc catches your eye, Jack. Most of the people that live here in Mountain View, they're just farmers and merchants. They're not battle hardened in any way, shape, or form. Most of them don't even carry a gun while they're around town. They still typically usually have some form of protection on them, but it's usually in the lines of something like a melee-based weapon, maybe a tire iron or something like that they keep with them just for general protection in case wild animals show up or anything like that, but not really anything for defending against people, which is why you've been hard-pressed trying to deal with the gang. Nukatami obviously didn't come into town by himself. He showed up with a gang of, including him, 10 individuals that are actually in this gang, which has left you just kind of overwhelmed and overpowered in the situation. And what I'd like to know, Jack, is at this point, what is your goal personally with this ragamuffin group of individuals? As I mentioned, they certainly have been causing trouble for the town, but as I did note, I was hesitant to call them raiders. Other than the recent situation with some of them coming into the office and taking the safe there on you, they've been here for months, and that really hasn't been their behavior. Now, obviously, if this is where it's going to, that's going to be a problem. But before that, they were more of just a nuisance. They'd hound the locals and give them a hard time, and there was a lot of verbal abuse going on, and lots of just general intimidation tactics. And then on top of that, they started working on setting up this casino. And generally speaking, I can definitely say that it's not like a casino and a new operation in town would, in particular, be a horrible thing for Mountain View. The problem is their behavior and the fact that they're scaring off the traders and they're making life difficult for the townsfolk. And now with the recent events, they're kind of starting to behave a little bit like raiders and less like a gang of hoods. So, what is it that Jack is actually hoping to accomplish? Is what I'm curious about here. Is he wanting to? Because there's so many options. He could want to drive them off. He could want to see them dead. He could want to see them incorporated into the town, but do so respectfully or at least following some rules. Like what is Jack's end goal?
Well, in the beginning, they were kind of just like a pain in my ass a little bit, but not too much of a mind. But now recently they took something that's a little bit important, and it's gotten to that point where I think incorporation's not something that's going to happen easily. So I want to shut them down. I want to get them out of the town. I would honestly, for reasons of my own, which I might reveal later, would be happy to see him dead. But as a sheriff, I won't bring that out loud until I know people are, in the know, I guess, or I trust him. And for audiences out there, like Jack is sort of has just past medium length, kind of like messy blonde hair, and he's wearing sort of like a darker tan Stetson cowboy hat, and he's got a duster on, and he always carries a pistol at his hip. And I always have my trusty dog with me, Mutt, as well. But I am gonna lean over to the bartender this evening and sort of ask them, who is this person actually? The bartender. How well do I know him?
You know him very well at this point. At this point, you've been the sheriff of the town for probably going on 2-3 years. At this point, is when you were elected. Um, so you're fairly familiar with everybody in the town actually now. Um, there's roughly at this point about 30 people that still live in Mountain View and call it their consistent home. So it's not a huge number of people. And amongst them, there's only a couple of traders, essentially. So there's the tavern keeper here, who is named Jenny Walsh. And then there is also a general store that's actually operated across the way in the strip mall. And that's run by Jebediah Johnson and
All right.
Jeb's Used Goods is what he calls the place. So yeah, those are the only two actual shopkeepers in the town. So of all the citizens, you probably know those two very well because they're the last lifeblood, essentially, of the town. There used to be more actual shops. There was another hotel in the town. The hostel was kind of run separately, and there used to be a couple of other general shops that actually also operated out of the town that have since dried up over time. Yeah, knowing these two is definitely something that is in your repertoire because, like I said, it's the last lifeblood of the town.
All right. Hey, Jenny, what do you make of that one over there? He's not one of those losers that Tommy's got around. Is he? I haven't seen him before.
Tonight's the first time I've seen him, and he's been poking around actually. Now that I think about it, I overheard him talking to Bill and Susan over there, and I think he ended up getting one of your little adverts that you sent out with the trade wagons. He keeps trying to get an idea, it seems like, of what's been going on around here, and well, he clearly, just by looking at him, he's not like the rest of the folks around here. He's kidded out.
And I wasn't really sure that those pamphlets would pay off, but it looks like I was wrong. So, all right, well, better do my duty and go talk to him. I'm gonna head over to the nameless man by the table.
All right, and while you're getting ready to head over there, both Doc and Jack, go ahead, and this is going to be one of those weird checks. Same one that I had both Katya and Aiden do earlier. We're going to do a perception and survival. And it's going to be a difficulty of 1.
It's not a tag skill for me, I don't think. No. All right. 2 successes.
All right, so that'll add.
How do you go about doing that again?
The little die up at the top of the character sheet, and then you'll select which attribute, which skill, and then if survival is a tag skill for you, you can mark that it's tagged, and with 2 dice.
Yeah. Now 1 success.
All right. So, Adrian, since you got 2 there and it was only a difficulty 1, that does put 1 more action point into the collective pool. So the pool is up to 4, just so everybody is aware.
Booyah.
And both of you notice, obviously, Doc, you absolutely notice that Jack is starting to approach you here. At the moment, just based on his getup, you can tell immediately that he is the sheriff of town and is the person you were eventually planning on talking to about this job after you kind of got your information in order. But both of you notice out of the window something that you weren't expecting. Now, both of you have heard stories of the vaults and the vault dwellers that reside within them. And you were aware that within the region there were a few of these dotted around at different places, and some of them have opened up, and some of them still are sealed shut to this day. But you've never seen a vault dweller yourself until just this moment. As you look out the window of the bar as you're cutting across it, and Doc, as you go to look back and notice Jack, you catch outside of the window 2 individuals walking up on the outskirts of town. You just, at this point, you can just see them. They're just finally, the light of the town is actually just starting to finally kind of hit them as they're walking down the road. And they immediately stand out to you. They're both wearing what appear to be riot helmets. At the moment, the visors on those are pulled up, so the face guard isn't currently down. They have what appears to be like some kind of tactical vest over their torsos. And then a very brightly blue colored, looks like some kind of full body jumpsuit deal. And with some very bright yellow trim running around it. It stands out just immediately to you. And it takes a second for your brains to process over what exactly is going on before you realize these are vault dwellers. I've heard about those weird jumpsuits that they wear, the bright blue and yellow. You've never seen one in person before, but at this moment, 2 individuals are walking into town sporting what appears to be pristine as the day that they would have entered the vault suits.
Oh, the monkeys are
Wow.
cool.
Yeah, they're gonna get robbed or something real soon. I was told you're maybe looking for work, but I think I need to go and make sure that those people don't get hijacked or something. You're welcome to tag along.
Yeah, no, that's gonna definitely spell trouble. Lead the way, Sheriff.
I'm Jack, by the way.
Doc. Everybody calls me Doc.
All right. Well, let's just go make sure they don't get killed or something in the next 5 minutes.
Lead the way, Sheriff.
All right, and the two
Come
of you
on,
go
Mutt.
to step out of the bar with Mutt in close pursuit behind Jack there, and you head out to the road to meet the Vault Dwellers as they enter into Mound View for the first time. And welcome back, everybody, to the continuation of Episode 1 of Fallout Windy Wasteland. And for those of you who had been wondering why this was going to be called Windy Wasteland, well, let me go ahead and I'll pull that map back up for you again real quick. And this is the updated map. As you can see up in the top left corner, they now have the little vault icon and a little icon for the settlement of Mound View that they have now discovered. So this map will be getting updated like that live over the course of gameplay, in particular for the audience, but also for our players. At this point, this is called Windy Wasteland because you'll see up on there that one of the main locations in this region will eventually be Chicago, so the Windy City. That is why we went with Windy Wasteland here. But with all of that said, at this point in our story, the Vault Dwellers have left Vault 53 on a very explicit mission. One was to find out the state of the world beyond the vault doors and whether or not it would be safe or beneficial or anything like that for the residents of the vault to potentially come out. Obviously, what they've discovered so far is that at least unless they find out other information as they're going along here, it might not be in their best interest to leave the vault just yet. But they still have an additional mission. Aiden and Katya need to find a thermal regulator chip that the vault needs in order to repair its own thermal regulator chip on the nuclear reactor that powers the vault. Otherwise, they're all going to be in some trouble and probably just have to leave the vault anyway, whether they want to or not, if they can't figure that out. So, right now, they are focused on that primary mission, as well as seeing if there's any additional information that they might find out that sways them to being like, we should leave the vault anyway, or no, we should definitely stay the fuck in the vault. But they have just arrived in the small settlement of Mound View. And as we discussed, Mound View is a small little ramshackle settlement of about 30 people on the outskirts of the pre-war city of Platteville, Wisconsin, where the sheriff, Jack, and a local mercenary, Doc, have just noticed from the tavern the Vault Dwellers rolling into town very auspiciously, and have left the bar to go and greet them out on the highway that runs into the ruins of Old Platteville. And that is where we return to our story, with Jack and Doc walking up to Katya and Aiden. So, let's set the scene a little bit. It's roughly about 1 in the morning now. So, well into the night. The moon hangs high in the wasteland with just a scant bit of cloud coverage here and there dotted across the sky, but mostly a clear night. Now, in this post-war world, the sky looks different than what many of us are used to nowadays. The light pollution that radiates from the Earth at all times of the night in our current world is not so much a thing in the Wasteland. Sure, you've got some fires and some minimal electricity as well running through the town through some repurposed and jury-rigged systems utilizing old fusion batteries that still have juice and rigging lighting to them to get a little bit of electricity in the various buildings. In particular, here in this part of the wasteland, that is very important during the winters that roll in, and actually being able to utilize some heating elements within the house that would require power to keep people warm in those cold wasteland winters. But it does mean that the sky is filled with stars, and you can even make out a few heavenly sights that you wouldn't normally be able to see as well, just from the Earth with the amount of light pollution that we have now. Various cosmic gas clouds that stretch across the sky that you can just faintly see out in the darkness there. And we have a group of 4 individuals walking up to each other. Now, both Jack and Doc have both recently described themselves in fairly decent detail there, so we won't have you re-describe yourselves in this situation. It's just important for our vault dwellers to note that they see these 2 individuals coming up upon them at this point from the town, along with a fairly large, looks like a cross between a German Shepherd and maybe another species or so, but it's hard to say at this point in the post-war. Most dogs have kind of become mutt breeds at this point without having humans to manage their breeding for them so closely. But still has a very German Shepherd look to it. And wearing, is the dog wearing its kit right now?
Yeah, I'd say he's probably got it on most of the time, except, you know, I'll take it off when he goes to bed and everything, but I don't want Mutt to get hurt or anything.
So the pupper is wearing, looks like a combat helmet that looks like it's been repurposed a little bit to better conform to the dog's head there, as well as some makeshift leather armor seems to be wrapped around its body and protecting the legs of the dog as well. And they are walking up to you slowly here. Now, our vault dwellers here, I didn't really have you necessarily describe your characters before. I've given little hints now at this point, at least about like the clothing that both of you are wearing at this point. But why don't you go ahead and actually describe what your characters look like at this point for us. We'll go ahead and start with Aiden here.
So Aiden is 6'4", 6'5", beefy, muscular, just big, with short, more of a pixie than a buzz cut, but very, very short, very, very dark hair, and almost abnormally bright blue eyes. Like, it doesn't seem like that's a color that should exist in nature, and yet here it is. An imposing presence, though she really tries not to be. It's just sort of how she's built.
And Katya.
Katya's a bit shorter of the two. Her hair is a medium, almost dark brown that's in a bob normally. She usually keeps it, she could pull it back in like a very small ponytail that she's very proud of. Out of both of them, she doesn't look like she's built to fight. She looks like she's just normal, pretty much.
And as you approach Jack and Doc, as you get close up to them, you immediately are able to make out both on the front center of the helmets and emblazoned on the actual kind of tactical armor that they're wearing is the Vault-Tec logo. You're both familiar with the logo. You know what vaults are, and again, like I said, you've heard of vault dwellers. You just haven't seen them before, and just looking them over, you're taken aback just for a moment by just how pristine their outfits are. The armor, the helmet, the vault suits that they're wearing, their boots, the large portable computer that is called a Pip-Boy strapped to each of their arms. And you're both familiar with Pip-Boys and all of that good stuff as well. Again, they're fairly rare, so this may very well be the first time that you may have seen one personally. But you know that there were computers that were at least available in these vaults that were actually portable, unlike most of the computer systems that exist out there in the Wasteland that you encounter on a more regular basis. So, first I'd like to ask from our Wastelanders, and we'll start with Doc, what's going through Doc's head as he approaches these two women on the street?
Well, definitely Doc's a little taken aback from, like as you said, like most of the stuff that they had on just like looks pristine, looks like perfect. But I think what Doc really notices is how clean these individuals are. Like not a speck of the wasteland is on them, and that's like what Doc like focuses on, because he's like all his life it's always been the wasteland. It's always been dust and dirt, and it's that's what he like thinks. And then he realizes that, like in that moment he realizes like, oh, these people have never been out on the wasteland at all. So, and that to him is like kind of like a sort of like frightening thing. Like hopefully these people will be all right, so that way they won't get either like taken advantage of here in the wasteland. So even then Doc's already like kind of protective of them somewhat.
And how about Jack? What's going through his head at the moment?
Oh, wow. What do they feed those people in the vaults? I don't think people get that tall anymore. That's insane. That's crazy. Wow. Yeah, they're totally gonna get robbed. They're too clean.
Too clean. Too clean. Now, on the flip side, Aiden and Katya, you're rolling up to this ramshackle looking settlement, and as you start strolling into town, these two individuals promptly begin walking towards you. What's going through your heads? Let's start with Katya this time.
She's like trying to size both of them up in her head. She's like, they look like people. Okay, so people did exist. People survived. Okay, good. They look friendly. That's good. Maybe this will be easier than I thought. Maybe we'll be home before nightfall tomorrow. No, we're being too optimistic about this. she's like looking at both of them being like, oh no, wait a moment. This is not gonna go how I wanted it to go.
How about you, Aiden?
You know, Aiden just sees a couple of dudes walking, one a little more dudes than the other, walking towards her, and it's not an instant raising of the hackles, but it's like, these are strangers, these are new people, be on guard if she's ready to throw hands if she needs to.
And I can say that one thing that would be a little off-putting for both of you is neither Doc nor Jack, nor even really Mutt, look the way that you would have expected. You've seen photos of pre-war America. Now, in the vault, everybody just wears vault suits. So that single one-piece jumpsuit, full body that everybody wears, blue and yellow. That's what you're most accustomed to. But you've seen pictures in books, and the aesthetic of the pre-war America in 2077, think outfits from like 1950s America. That's kind of the aesthetic that was going on at the time. And what you see here are two Wastelanders. They're covered up in makeshift leather armor that's covering them up Mad Max style, these ramshackle, torn, pieced together clothing. It's not what you would have expected in any way, shape, or form. And as you all approach in the center of this highway, rolling into the ruins of pre-war Platteville, I will let you take it from there.
Well, I don't know if you two are lost or something, but it might be dangerous out here. I'm the sheriff around these parts. If maybe it'd be safer for you if we just like go inside or something. Like, I don't want any of you to get robbed or anything.
You're in charge.
Yeah, that's what people tell me.
Up there.
Oh yeah, this is Moundville. Mount View? Mount View?
View.
View?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is Mount View. I take
I'm
it
just gonna-
you haven't heard of it before? I mean,
No, can't say that I have.
yeah. I mean, well, hopefully it's gonna be around a bit longer. Would you like a drink or something?
I'm just gonna look at Katya first.
Kind of like the meeting of the eyes and the raising of eyebrows, just like silently communicating of just like, what? This is not normal.
Mutt is very happily sniffing around both of you, non-aggressively.
I mean, going inside couldn't hurt.
And where are you going to take them to, Jack? Are you going to back to the tavern? Or are you heading over to the hostel? Or are you heading to where you stay, which serves at the moment as the sheriff's station as well?
Well, I promised him a drink first, so I thought I'd probably take him back to the tavern.
Well, you could have had your own personal stock. I don't know. All right,
I
so
suppose, yeah. I mean, if that's a thing, then I'll take him over to the sheriff's station. That's no problem, because I wanted to talk to Doc anyway about the job.
perfect. All right, well, I would imagine that you'd have some form of beverage there.
Fermented Brahmin milk. It's delicious.
Fermented Brahmin milk. You probably got something a little bit stronger than that, I would wager. Let's see here. Let's go with. I'll let you take your pick. You can either have some whiskey, vodka, rum, moonshine, or bourbon.
I'm gonna be a bourbon man. Bourbon.
All
Yeah.
right. If you could for me, because I know you have the funds available for it, go ahead and drop yourself 7 caps to denote that we added that to your gear, and you can add
All
that
right.
into your gear as well. It does have 1 weight to it, so you'll want to track that.
Okay.
And
Done.
when you get your drink on with it, it will allow you to roll 1d20 on endurance tests for the duration of the effects there, which is not too shabby. Something to keep in
Nice.
mind. It is also potential to give you alcoholism. So there is a check that you need to
Yeah.
make when you get to drinking. We won't worry about it for your first drinks here, but if y'all start becoming more regular drinkers, we'll find out if any of y'all are alcoholics.
Just like in real life.
Yeah. But the fun part is in the role-playing game, we all get to find out together whether or not someone's an alcoholic. All right, so yeah, you all head down to the sheriff's office. Jack strolls down the road just a little ways. Getting a little bit closer and further into the ruins of old Platteville, but doesn't take you into any of the pre-war buildings as they get to that point. He's got a ramshackle little hut type shack deal built along the side of the highway that he stays in, and also serves as the sheriff's office for the time being. You've gone ahead and purposed there's 2 cells in there for you to detain people, but you can't obviously detain tons of people at once without doubling people up or more in cells. And so, yeah, you have a desk in there. You've also got a bed set up in a side room. Fridge with your booze in it and a little bit of food, which we'll find out what food you have later. We're not going to worry about that just this second, unless you're planning on feeding them a meal too here at this point. But it was only a drink that was offered, so we'll prosper the drink first. So yeah, you get back, and I would imagine you probably have also, since this does double as the sheriff's office, at some point have cobbled together a few chairs that you have dotted around a couple places in the room for people to sit. Where are you going to head to as you first enter the room there?
The moment I step in the door, first thing I do is take my hat off and hang it on a coat rack, and then I say, "Well, make yourself comfortable. We got some chairs here, and just give me a moment, and I'll take the helmet off of Mutt and take his little armor off quick. Like, there we go, buddy. We're inside now. You're okay."
He kind of prances around a little bit once he gets everything off, and then rolls around a few times on the floor, and then curls up in a kind of a little ball on the rug that you have in the main area.
So I've got a couple of glasses that I sort of fashioned myself out of old soda bottles, kind of like cut in half, but break out the bottle of whiskey and just pour a bit in a glass for everyone. So I mean, I gotta ask, what the hell are you doing out here? Not you, Doc. I mean, obviously you came here for the job, but like,
I'm just as curious as you, Sheriff.
I was half convinced you guys were like fake or something. I mean, I'd seen the vaults around and stuff, but you hear stories about like, oh, they're just full of like ghouls and stuff now, or like, communes for raiders and stuff. But
can't say I've seen that jumpsuit either. I mean, like, you've heard about it back in the old days, but to see one so pristine, it's almost like a dream. What's that equipment you have in your arm? Is that a computer? I'm just eyeing it. It's like be
I'm not going to let him eye it too closely.
Doc's just curious, you know. He's seen something he hasn't seen at all, so he's looking at her.
It's something like that. It's mostly a map.
Okay, so you've got a map. Do you want some of this whiskey, or I mean,
I'm taking a sip.
I'm technically off duty now, so this is okay.
Would we have ever? I mean, I don't assume they stockpile alcohol in the vaults, so.
There was still alcohol available. It was moderated very heavily within the vault. So the supply did actually make it all the way out to your generation, although at this point the rations have gotten extremely tight at the vault because they haven't been open and trading with the Wasteland to have products moving around, so they've just slowly been kind of depleting through stock. But they're based on the fact that you guys are both on the security team, there's a very real chance that you've had an opportunity to have a drink a couple times in your life.
That changes my decision then. I will probably drink along with him.
Who else is drinking?
Cat'll take a glass, just like very gingerly takes it, kind of just like gives it like a slight smell and just like takes a very small sip. Because she's just like, what is this? Like, I know this is alcohol, but is this like what we've had?
It's bad gin and you're going to get formaldehyde poisoning.
Doc's good on his drinking days, so he's gonna pass on the whiskey.
All right.
So yeah, I mean, what brings you out here to Mountview?
We were sent. Not here, but here.
Are there more of you?
No.
So it's just the two of you.
Yep.
So like this was like a mission from God or something, you know? There were a folks couple back in like near where Boston used to be. They were like worshiping this unexploded warhead for a while. Tried to tell them it wasn't God, but
I had some run-ins with those crazy people too. They called themselves the children of Adam or something. No, I stay clear away from those guys. Yeah, no.
Kat's literally thinking to herself, when we get back, I'm telling the overseer it's not safe. That's literally as they're talking about this. She's just holding the whiskey in her hand, like swirling it around a little bit, just like, We're all right, to level with you. We're looking for a chip for one of the what was the thing? The
thermoregulator.
That thing.
Thermoregulator.
I mean that kind of stuff doesn't really come cheap or easy, but I mean, I
don't think your typical general store would have those.
Probably not, but you know, I can probably put you on the right path towards one, but I'm just having a look at seeing the right gear here, and are either of you armed, by the way?
They both have noticeable 10mm pistols on them. And I believe you each have some melee weapons as well. It's not really easy to hide them in a vault suit.
Armed.
And yeah, Aiden is large.
Wow.
She has like 3 guns.
I don't mean to stare or anything, but like, I haven't seen something like you're jacked. It's all heck. That's really impressive.
Well, for a second there, I thought you were some super mutant, like maybe stole a jumpsuit or something.
Oh no. She's far much too clean for a superhuman. Look, I can probably put you on the path to like finding this fusion generator chip that you need, or but to be honest, the reason I just met this guy here tonight, he's gonna be helping me out with a bit of a job.
Name's Doc. Pleasure to meet you all.
I'm Jack, by the way. I can't remember if I said or not.
Jack, Sheriff, Doc.
You could say that, yes. I know some. I have some knowledge about medicine.
I mean, that's Katya. Cat, whatever.
And as Mutt comes like trotting up and just gives some scritches, and this little guy here is Mutt.
He sits down very stoically next to you.
So, I mean, I'll level with you. Like, I want to make sure that you don't get robbed and you find what you're looking for. But I've been sending out flyers for help for like 3 months now. And so far, Doc is the only one who's come answering. However, both of you, you've got this riot gear and you've got like guns. So, I figure if you could help me out with a little problem, then I can sort of put you on your way.
Yeah, things like that are very rare in the Wasteland. So you definitely look like a bunch of really stopping power. So I'm not really familiar with the job yet, as the sheriff hasn't told me anything about it. But I think if we need more firepower, you guys are it.
So, I mean, that's kind of the offer I have on my table right now. I can tell you about the job, and you can tell me if it sounds like it's worth your time to find your chip.
You guys see Aiden just pull like a silver dollar out of his pocket and flip it.
And Kat's eyebrows just go up at her. Like, seriously now?
The coin said yes.
Well,
I don't control the coin. The coin said yes.
You rely on that thing too much. All right, we'll hear you out. It's at least a starting point.
By the way, you might want to be careful, like flashing that thing around. That's kind of rare.
You don't get pre-war money like that anymore either. You guys are just walking museums, to be honest.
I don't think he means like you're old or anything. It's just like, the stuff that you've got, just people don't see it.
Super rare.
Oh, hold on, I need a clarification here. You guys don't use money anymore?
Well, it's kind of... I'm gonna pull out my my clip that I've got that has a whole bunch of different caps attached to it. When there's no, like, well, they used to call it like a Federal Reserve, we defaulted to these. Jangle, jangle, jangle.
So, on a scale of worthless to not worthless, what does real money go for anymore? What's your exchange rate?
I don't really have any use for
Overseer, is there an exchange rate?
It depends upon where you are. And Jack and Doc can explain this into whatever level of detail they choose to explain this to the poor little vault dwellers out there. But there's even caps are the universal currency. They're kind of used by everyone, and the reason for that is in the Windy Wasteland, much like what happened in the hub out in California, there was a group of merchants who got together and they managed to get control of some of the only places within the wasteland presently that have clean, pure drinking water that is not irradiated. And so drinking water has kind of become the gold standard. And those bottle caps represent, much like the gold standard used to have $1 representing a chunk of gold, it represents a bottle of clean water, essentially. So water has technically become the currency, but rather than using the big, bulky bottles themselves and using that as currency, they just use these caps. And the caps that they use specifically are all an assortment of caps that aren't able to be manufactured easily anymore. So it does also maintain a limit to some degree on the currency and allows for an economy to form. And these would be caps from Nuka-Cola bottles, as well as Nuka-Cola Quantum, and a couple other beverages as well are also used to give additional denominations. So they're all different types of pre-war beverages, and the caps from those that can no longer really be manufactured. The only way new caps come into currency is when people discover these pre-war beverages in their unopened state and open one, and thus gain themselves a cap and a tasty pre-war drink. So that is the universal currency. There are also a few other currencies that exist out there, pre-war money being one of them. There is also a faction out there that we'll get into in the storyline eventually called the Brotherhood of Steel, which uses scrip. It's their own kind of currency. And then sometimes once a group gets to the point of being a full-fledged faction, essentially, that's when they start considering things like developing their own currencies as well. So there are a few different ones that can potentially be out there. The thing is, though, outside of caps, whether or not something has value and how much value it has is going to vary from place to place and who you're dealing with. So if you're dealing with somebody who either wants to collect pre-war relics and would love to get their hands on some untarnished pre-war bills, or anyone who potentially has decided to adopt previous pre-war currency as their currency, otherwise they're not useful to you. So I can definitely say that unless Jack or Doc has decided that they have a proclivity towards random pre-war goods, there's really not anyone in this town, actually, that would give a damn about pre-war money. So essentially, from this town's perspective, you two are flat broke.
Yeah, I
think we're fucked.
I'd say, you'd find a collector somewhere, but not around here.
Those jumpsuits might be worth a fortune. I could say that.
That's true, although I don't think Jebediah could afford one of them, to be honest.
Or those fancy doohickeys that you have on your arms, too.
That too.
A fortune, too.
Well, so it looks like you're probably going to be needing some caps as well. Let me tell you about the job. So a couple of months ago, this group got into town, call themselves the Droplets, like a bit of a gang, if you will, held by this jackass calls himself Nukatami. Anyway, in the beginning, it wasn't too much of a hassle, they were like be a bit rough with some of the townsfolk and such, but eventually they started becoming more violent and more threatening and pushing people out. And well, basically our town is in a state where if we don't get rid of them, we're gonna die as a town. 2 nights ago, they broke into the sheriff's office here, and they stole a safe. There's pretty much the whole town's money in that safe. They haven't done anything like that before. So the job is this: 50 caps per person. Just pretty decent. What I would need, seeing as both of you, and I gestured Aiden and Katya, both of you are fancy and new and likely to be gullible. I would like you to head into old Nukatami's casino, cozy up to him, scout the place out. Only once we can get inside, we find the safe, take him down. You do that for me, I'll make sure that you get sent on the right way to get your chip.
I'm not going to flip this time. I'm just going to look at Katya.
Some raider problems, huh? I know the type.
Well, they're a little bit... I think they're attracting more raiders, you know, power and numbers and all that type of stuff, but...
They're like, I swear to God, they're like rat roaches, man. You see one of them, there's gonna be a whole bunch of nests just popping out.
Thing is, it's not like a casino wouldn't benefit the town, but, you know, he's doing it in a way that's running us out, which doesn't help any of us.
Yeah, we can help out. Now I'm gonna look up at Ada and go, it's at least a start to find it. If it's hard to find out here, it's at least somewhere to start.
It's not like we have any other options.
Mm-hmm.
And that
So,
is where we will pause our story for tonight. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming and hanging out with us in the Wasteland. And be sure to come back and kick it with us next week as we go find out what happens with these raiders here in Mountain View. Have a fantastic evening, everyone.
Bye.